Hey everyone, it's Types, and the Pokemon TCG, and I say this a lot, has a lot of cards in it. And if you look through a set like, let's just say Deaths and Rivals here, you might notice something weird. So we'll look at just a card like, for example, Shaman here, and you can see it has the regulation mark I. If you didn't know, regulation marks in the Pokemon TCG represent when a card rotates. So generally a card will be in the standard format for, a couple of years, and this keeps the game fresh, whatever. This isn't a video about rotation, but it is something that is worth noting. And if you actually want to know what cards are illegal, you can mostly look at regulation mark there. And so we see that for, most of the cards in the set, generally by set, by when the card comes out. We see this card has a regulation mark over H. This is because of something kind of weird being a reprint here. So reprints will do some weird stuff with that. But then we also look at other things. We look at, for example, this Rabsca EX. This isn't actually a reprint, but does have an older regulation mark. You look at, Cynthia's Garchomp EX has an I regulation mark here, but, you see these older regulation marks in some cards. You see it on, like, TM Machine as well. By the way, terrible name, but whatever. That's for another video, which I have made videos on in the past. And one, this card has an old regulation mark, and it's not a reprint, which is kind of weird. And two, it is very bad. I'm not gonna lie. This card is. I recently did a video on the worst cards in Standard, and did say this is the worst card in Standard. You could argue for some other cards. I wouldn't say that's crazy, but this card doesn't really do much of anything, to be honest. It's just sort of one card, which is very bad. But anyways, TM Machine here. Again, isn't very good, which is important for this, and is a not a reprint, has an older regulation mark, and this is because it is a promo card. Well, it's not a promo card. In Japan, it is a promo card. Internationally, it's printed within the set, so it comes out actually a lot later internationally than in Japan. This means that these cards are out in Japan for a little while. I will say, usually these Japanese promo cards are not very good. When I say not very good, I mean they are they're pretty bad. Yes, TM Machine is worse than others, but you look at Rabsca EX here, for example. I didn't even remember until I just glanced at it. I was like, oh yeah, that was a Scarlet Violet promo. And we see the same thing for Mega Evolution promos, which is what I'm talking about today, specifically the ones that aren't out yet. I will say that there are some that are out as well, which we'll be talking about a little bit. These are important cards because, as I said, they released a lot later internationally than in Japan, meaning people forget about them. People get excited about new cards, but with these promo cards, because they aren't relatively new in Japan, they're not played in Japan, people internationally look at the Japanese metagame to decide what they want to play to some extent, and these cards get forgotten about. Again, they aren't super good, but I think they are interesting cards to consider, and I do want to talk about the ones that aren't coming, that aren't out just yet as well. So we have 5 currently promos that are not out internationally, that are out in Japan. And I'm going to be going over them in today's video. I'm not ranking them per se, but I am going to talk about how good they are and if they have any potential. So we have Slowpoke, Mega Slowbro EX, Jet, Delphox, Mega Delphox EX, and Grisham. These cards are honestly somewhat interesting. They aren't super interesting, I guess, but I mean, if we look at something like Mega Excadrill EX or Toucannon, I'd say honestly they're about as interesting as those cards, and those cards are getting a lot of talk. So first of all, we have the Slowpoke. I guess this card actually isn't that interesting. It's a previous evolution. It's actually okay. A Muta Confusion has an attack here. You're just comparing this to the other Slowpokes within a Slowking deck, pretty much. There's not really too much else to say about it. But I do want to, I guess, mention it because it is a promo. But it's here to, evolve into Mega Slowbro EX. Also, I did say these cards aren't out internationally, meaning they're not out in English. This is on PokemonProxies.com, which has proxy translations of them. So specifically, there could, I guess, be typos, or specifically, or more importantly, or more likely that the names aren't necessarily right of the attacks. That doesn't really matter, but I do want to acknowledge it here. And as you can see, it says it's like not, an actual card here. But Mega Slowbro EX is definitely somewhat interesting. Of course, it evolves from Slowpoke, just like Slowking and Slowbro, so you could put it in a Slowking deck potentially, and we do see this some in Japan. And this card has the attack Shelnado Spin for 3 Psychic, doing 180. And then during your opponent's next turn, if this Pokemon takes damage from an attack, you put 12 damage counters on the attacking Pokemon. 180 for 3 on a Stage 1 3-prizer is not very good. It's bad. It's not necessarily the worst. I mean, you look at Mega Starmie EX, and its second attack, which is sometimes used, does 210. It does more damage, and it is also all colorless, and also it's not that good, but it is something that's used some, and so hitting us this like mid-range damage amount is, I mean, it's okay. Same amount that Dragapult EX is doing, and I guess against Dragapult EX as well, you can one-shot them with Lotus Clefairy EX on the bench, and then again you put 12 damage cards on the attacking Pokemon if they hit into you, and this is not bad. Damaging your opponent's Pokemon in this manner is actually useful against like single prizers. Well, it's not useful against Alakazam, but it's useful against something like, for example, Festival Lead. It's actually really nice there. And against other things, it could be useful as well, like wait, sorry, 1 second. Slowking has how much? It's that's not the right one. I believe it is 130 though. I should know that. Oh no, it is 120. Okay, I don't really play this deck that much, and I see it some, but half the time I see it, Slowking never hits the board because the deck's not very consistent. So yeah, you will actually knock out Slowking there. There's some Pokemon that are just outside of range, but yeah, you can knock out some of these Pokemon. Again, it doesn't work against Alakazam. There's some Pokemon it just doesn't work against, but this is not a bad attack at all. Well, I don't know. It's not. Maybe it's a little bad, but it's not truly terrible. This card is kind of playable. There are definitely worse cards out there, and well, this card I do think will get kind of swept under the radar when it actually comes out. I think it is an okay card to keep an eye out for. And yeah, I mean, I imagine there's some people, specifically Slowking players, like, is this a card you're going to consider? It is more expensive than Slowking, but it isn't actually as resource intensive as Slowking, not requiring you to put a card on top of your deck, or maybe it's like a similar amount, but I wouldn't say it's that crazy to set up. And it's a pretty consistent attacker, unlike Slowking, which like loses the energy, or might lose the energy. It loses. I mean, it gets knocked out as well. It's getting knocked out all the time. Requires you to put a Pokemon back on top. So this presumably not getting knocked out that easily, and potentially knocking out multiple Pokemon in a manner that's somewhat difficult for your opponent to deal with, or like pressuring them in weird ways. It's okay. You can also look at this as just doing 300 for 3 Psychic, which is okay as well. It's not like crazy broken. We see this on like a basic with Mega Latias CX or something like that, which isn't super good. But this card is definitely not terrible, and definitely an interesting card to consider if you didn't know about it. Then we have the other Mega here, Mega Delphox EX. The Mega Delphox EX, of course, evolves from the same line as Delphox, which is a Delphox in Standard that you discard an energy. Is it a fire? Yeah, you discard a fire, you draw till you have 6 basic fire there, and then you do 30 for each energy attached to all Pokemon to play both yours and your opponents. This is not a very good card. I will stand behind that, but it has seen a little bit of play, and some of these decks have played Mega Delphox EX, I believe. No, not on Play Limitless here, but I have seen it some on like Pokemon Book and in some other tournaments. And this card has the attack. Well, first of all, Trick Portal. This deck's kind of cool. Getting Pokemon from the top of your deck into play directly, skips evolution rules there, which can be cool. But ultimately, talk about this. It's like actually not faster than normal. It's actually a little slower or the same speed as normal here, because it is on a stage 2 attack, right? So Trick Portal not going to be very good, I don't think, though you might use it in emergencies. Then Eerie Glow here for Fire Colors. Colors does 200 burn and confusion. I was going to say the Slowpoke then wouldn't get confused, which is like technically true, I suppose, if you survival braced, the Slowpoke we looked at earlier, but obviously that's kind of silly because, Slowpoke only has 80 HP, and it's also super niche anyways, but, you're confusing and burning, and that's pretty decent, potentially disrupting. You look at Munkidori, confusion's like good, I guess. I mean, Munkidori isn't a very good attacker, but you will attack with some, and sometimes you go for the confusion and hope there. And then, also burn is decent. There's some burn synergy, I guess. Realistically, this card, again, isn't super good, but like the Mega Slowbro there, this card works with the evolution line and kind of adds to it. The Delphox, as I said, isn't super good, but it does have draw and damage. It has some stuff. Also, Mega Delphox EX does allow you to pair it with Oricorio EX if you want to accelerate to Delphox or to something else to power up Delphox's damage there. So it's interesting, I guess. I mean, it's, again, definitely not the worst card around. It's definitely not the best either. Again, these unreleased promos these cards are generally not super good. Sometimes they're really bad, but this batch is okay. And again, they are often pretty forgotten. And we have these two supports. These are both kind of interesting. We have Jet, draw card feature points Mega Evolution Pokemon EX in play. This theoretically could draw a bunch of cards. This one is pretty niche, I will say. Drawing one for each Mega your opponent has in play. They may not have any. They probably won't have a ton. I'm trying to think of Mega decks, and I mean, there are some Megas that see play, specifically Mega Kangaskhan EX, which presumably your opponent will have only one copy of in play. Even if they have two, it's still bad. If they have three, it's still not very good. If they have four, it's pretty fine, I guess. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section on how good a draw 3 supporter would be. I actually don't know. I feel like it would be okay. I'd actually like to see that card printed because we see all these draw 3 spoilers and they're just not good. So maybe draw 4 could be interesting, but this obviously isn't going to be draw 4 very consistently. It'll probably never be draw 4 if you play this card, and it's never going to be more than draw 4. I can't imagine. Like, why is my opponent playing down 5 Megas? That's honestly kind of hard to do. I suppose if you really wanted to, you could. You have to go very much out of your way to do it. And the Megas aren't very good support Pokemon, so Jet unfortunately not super good here. I think if this was like regular EXs, it would be... I don't know how good it would be. It would be playable, I suppose. Like, kind of playable. I don't expect it to see play, but maybe. I mean, maybe you'd see play in something like Alakazam, or I don't know. There are different options. Again, this card isn't that, though, so it's unfortunately not very good here. However, the last supporter here, Grisham, is actually pretty interesting here. Heal 50 from all Pokemon play, both yours and your opponents. This card actually reminds me a lot of the supporter card Fennel, which is 40 from all of your Pokemon. I was actually playing with a Frostlass deck. My opponent pulled out Fennel. It didn't end up winning them the game, but was... I mean, it certainly put them from a really bad position to a much better position than they were in before it. Again, they weren't quite able to get there. They're playing Festival Lead. Festival Lead really struggles against something like Frostlass and other damage spread stuff as well, because your opponent, isn't going to, you cannot play Battle Cage. Your opponent can just hit your bench as much as they want. So that's pretty rough. You can play Shaman. You could play Rabsca, I will mention. That's not stopping Frostlass there, but it does stop some stuff. It's also like kind of clunky, obviously having to play Festival Grounds. I think Festival Grounds isn't a very good stadium. It could be useful. I mean, it could be played to counter something like, I guess, Munkidori's attack, which again is pretty niche, and in Festival Lead, that also doesn't really matter, so it's pretty much irrelevant, I'm not going to lie. I personally haven't seen it matter, I don't think. But anyways, you are forced to play that stadium, and so you can't play Battle Cage. That is a big issue there in some sense. Not that Battle Cage completely wins all those games anyways. So Fennel is an interesting card, and my opponent, when they play, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then Grisham is better. It heals 50 from all Pokemon. Yes, it does have this downside of healing your opponent's Pokemon, except if everyone's playing Frostlass, they're probably also playing a Munkidori, and then they blend Munkidori, they kind of want damage on their own Pokemon. Healing their own your opponent's Pokemon can be bad still. It can be good. I'd say it probably is going to average out to being neutral, and then you're just healing more from your Pokemon. There will be times when it is better. Again, when you're looking at those Munkidori situations, which definitely are going to be arising when you're looking to use this card. That being said, this card isn't like that good. It's okay, but as a healing card, it is decent. Healing the Pokemon DHG isn't super good, but this can heal a ton. So it's definitely a card to consider if you are worried about certain spread decks, maybe even against Dragapult. Definitely doesn't feel super good against Dragapult, but we do see like Meowth EX to be able to search these cards easier as well. So definitely an interesting card to consider, and one that I am wondering if it will see play. There are also 5 Mega promos that are in Standard right now. They were promos from in Japan, and they have been added to regular sets. Got Lapras EX here. This one does Respiration, the water energy attached to it, and switches to the bench. This card, I don't think there's very much with. Of course, these cards are out as well, so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you've played with any of these cards, or one of these cards I talked about some in a video, or a few videos, and I've gotten some comments on. It's really fun dialogue there. Lapras EX I don't think is super interesting. Hit and Run can be cool. By the way, I use the term Hit and Run referring to Pokemon that then leave another Pokemon in the active. I know some people use it just to refer to Pokemon that switch. I refer to it a Pokemon that switches, or a Pokemon that like returns itself to your hand or shuffles into your deck. Like there's an Emolga from the Chaos Rising build battle kit. I was talking with someone about it, and like we had used different terminology, and it got a little weird there. But this meets both those terms. So you're going to be sending yourself to the bench. Can send up something interesting, I suppose. What is that? I don't know. I don't think there are really any particularly amazing Pokemon to send up outside of, I guess, Crustle, but I don't know. I'm not really loving that. Or Sylveon as well, I suppose. But yeah, you got Lapras here. It is a card. It's not a very interesting card or a very good card here, though. Again, it was a Mega Promo as well. I said Mega Promo. They are like gym promos. I didn't say that in this video. When you look at the promos, the main like special ones are the gym promos, and then there's some wacky stuff like these expanded promos and stuff too. But yeah, and then we got Crocodile EX. Crocodile EX is super wacky, especially looking at it in the build and battle format again from Chaos Rising, because this card actually doesn't have the previous evolutions in the set. However, using Grimsley's move from the build and battle kits within the Darkness kit, featuring the Toxtricity. No, I don't think it's Toxtricity. Featuring Crobat. There we go. Yeah, that's the one that plays it. You can actually get this into play. It's actually not very good, though. I was playing a bunch of build and battle, which, by the way, pretty fun. They're not loving the current format, but Crocodile EX isn't super good. It's okay. Maybe worth playing, but definitely an interesting card here. Within that sense, what it actually does is first attack is 80 stopping retreat for 2, not super good. 280 for 3, and if you have a tool attached, is okay. You do need the tool. Getting a tool isn't like bad though. You can pair this with Punk Helmet, then you're kind of doing 320, which is obviously kind of number you're looking to hit against something like Dragapult EX or various different things. Well, I don't know, it's a little short on some things as well, but it's pretty solid here. I mean, it's not that good, but it is interesting to consider. Again, not a terrible card, but it's not great. We got some really interesting ones here. We got Adversity Policy. If this card, if the Pokemon this card is attached to is essentially hit for weakness, right, by a Pokemon, then you draw 3. This is interesting. We're actually seeing a lot of people play Lucky Helmet. I actually don't know exactly why people are playing more Lucky Helmet, to be honest. I'm sure there's some reason. I feel like it's not that much better than it was previously. Not that it wasn't, I guess, underrated before. But anyways, people are playing Lucky Helmet some. Adversity Policy is going to be drawing you 1 more card than Lucky Helmet, which is just going to be drawing you 2 if you're hidden 2. But obviously it's a lot more niche there. So when are you looking to use this in? I don't know. Maybe if you're getting hit for weakness by like Badoo or something, which is a situation where Lucky Helmet can be good as well. But Adversity Policy is kind of interesting. I think if Lucky Helmet wasn't in format, it would be more appealing, but it is still a weird card. When theoretically you can make a toolbox where you're trying to get hit for weakness, or maybe you're not trying to, but you will end up getting hit for weakness. I called Slop Box at one point Get Hit for Weakness Box, because somehow every time I either played with the deck, which wasn't that many times, or played against the deck, it was always being hit for a weakness by like all sorts of random decks. So maybe something like that. Not actually, but it is a funny idea. And Adversity Policy, really interesting card. Then we got Mega Lady EX, and this card is out in Standard with Chaos Rising. And again, you can't actually play it if you're just playing with Chaos Rising, because the previous evolutions aren't in the set. This one has another somewhat interesting attack. 240 for 3 is not terrible either. This is a Mega, keep in mind, comparing it to Crocodile EX though, so not super good. Gale Slash though, you do 200 for 1 fight if you have no energy attached. Of course, you could pair this with Wise Compassion as well. This is going to get caught in the crossfire of the Psychic weakness stuff, I mean, with Lilies, right? So well, it doesn't need to be hit for weakness with Lilies, but obviously their deck's playing Lilies to hit Dragapult for weakness, right? So Mega Glade here is not going to be staying around as much as you're probably hoping for, but I mean, it's not weak or anything. It is tanky, and, well, tanky for a Pokemon. For Stage 2 Mega, it's kind of, I think, average, but yeah, I mean, 200 for 1 fighting, not too bad. Not amazing or broken, but pretty interesting, potentially with Wallies. You're kind of looking at this like Mega Lopunny. I suppose you are looking at this like Mega Lopunny, and then just like worse like Mega Lopunny, it does less damage. It does hit weakness, but also gets hit for a worse weakness. So I suppose if you're against Mega Lopunny, then this is actually kind of good. But This card, not super good. It's from the same evolution line, though, as the Gardevoir stuff. So theoretically, something interesting in standard, maybe an expanded. I was messing with this card a little. Didn't get very far, I'm not going to lie. But it has some interesting stuff. Again, you're kind of squinting to see some use cases of them. But there are cards people do forget about. I got Holding a Shovel, the last one here, building the top 2 cards of your deck on an item. This is one that is super bad, I'm not going to lie, because getting rid of random cards from your deck isn't that good. It's probably bad. And then spending an item like a card from your hand to do so is not good, or really essentially ever. I mean, you could pair it with something like Night Stretcher, but I mean, I've been playing Explorer's Guidance, and I think that card's awesome, but also, I mean, Hole Digging Shovel, like Explorer's Guidance gets 2 cards. Hole Digging Shovel doesn't. Yes, it's an item, but it's pretty bad. It can be funny with something maybe even like Sacrilege. I've messed around with that a tiny bit. I don't think there's any actual use case in standard. Maybe some use case in expanded. Obviously, then you should play Battle Compressor over it because it's just so much better. I suppose you could say these cards are really bad Battle Compressor. When I say really bad, it's like not even close to what it does. I mean, it's getting rid of cards to your deck, so that's similar. I can't think of a better comparison. I mean, I mentioned Explorer's Guidance, but it is a really funny card here. Obviously, these newer promos, I think, are looking a bit more interesting than the ones we currently have in the game. Again, they are going to be forgotten about some as well, I do think, but they are still definitely interesting cards to keep an eye out for. But tell me down below in the comment section if you have any cool ideas. Also, huge shout out to my YouTube members supporting the channel, but everyone else as well who likes and subscribes. I really do appreciate it. And again, it's something you can do for free, just liking the video, subscribing. But I hope you all enjoyed. As I said, leave down below in the comment section all the stuff that you've done with these cards, or that you haven't done, or if you didn't know about any of these cards. But I hope you all enjoyed. And as Osmond said, see you in the next video.